Welcome to Spare Change News TV. My name is Sam Baltrusis. I'm the editor-in-chief of Spare Change News. Joining me today is Beatrice Bell.
Hello.
Welcome, Beatrice. Beatrice is one of our reporters. She's also a vendor of Spare Change News. So, Beatrice, how did you get involved with Spare Change?
Well, years ago, back in 1992, I had my kids taken from me by Children's Services. I was told I had to go into a battered women's shelter. And I stayed at this nice place called the Phoenix House.
Okay.
And after my time was up at Phoenix House, I had nowhere else to go except the regular homeless shelters. And one day someone said, "Hey, have you checked out Spare Change News?" I'm like, "What is Spare Change News?" They said, "Yeah, it's a good place. You can go get a job, sell papers, help take care of yourself." And I said, sounds interesting. I came up here to Cambridge, checked it out, and I said, they weren't lying. It is kind of nice. Decided to stick with it, and I've been with it for 22 years come this June.
That's amazing. And Beatrice is also a reporter. And I met Beatrice. My first time with Beatrice was at a press event with the mayor at the Southampton Street Shelter. And I saw Beatrice. First of all, I saw this woman with her iPhone right in front of the mayor's face. And I'm like, who is that reporter? She's good. And it was Beatrice. And she came and was like, oh, I'm Beatrice. So how did you get involved with the reporting part of Spare Change?
Well, years ago, I had heard about this program where you could get paid to write articles for the paper. So I said, I'm good at writing. Why not give it a try? And so my first article, as I remember, was about MAHA, Massachusetts Affordable Housing Alliance. And seriously, it wasn't all that bad. I kind of liked doing it, and I said, I'm going to keep sticking with it and keep doing it. And so since then, I've covered all sorts of issues there, regarding homelessness, housing, politics. I get most of my stories from Rosie's Place, the women's shelter on Harrison Ave in Boston. But sometimes I just get lucky, like I did last weekend. I just happened to be passing through Dudley Station when, what do you know, the mayor is there and he's christening the new Bruce C. Bowling building.
And that's what I've liked about your reporting. You actually are out in the field, and it's like what's going on. The whole Southampton Street Shelter story that you did. So we had Alex did a feature, and you actually focused on other parts of the shelter that Alex didn't cover. For example, like where did the women go?
Right.
What are your thoughts? Like you have some experience with homelessness in the shelter system. What are your thoughts on women in the shelters?
Well, they don't get served in the same way as the guys do. I've noticed that much. I mean, for the most part, it's like they don't think that the women need the same kind of help as the guys do. But if in anything, they do need the same types of services. I mean, like some of my friends who still stay at Rosie's Place there, they've been fighting for years to get housing. They've cleaned their act up, they're no longer doing drugs and alcohol and stuff, and they're just fighting, to stay above water and get on their feet and get what they need to take care of them and their families.
And so, as far as like the Southampton Street Shelter, do you know what's the latest with that? I know that they were postponing the additional beds, and I know they were talking about doing. You actually broke this story, Woods Mold, into a female-only shelter. Have you heard any latest on that?
No, I haven't. I was thinking about going over there possibly this week and talk with a few of the people that have been staying there and find out what's going on, or maybe even possibly make an appointment to meet and talk with someone who's actually running the shelter right now.
And getting to your stories, like you've actually been my source from getting the female perspective of the shelter system, like Long Island. Having seen the sort of like the backstory of Long Island, and this we're not bashing the shelter system here, but we're basically telling what the reality is for the shelter system. What was Long Island like?
Well, when I stayed there back in the 90s, for the most part, you could say it was a pretty cool shelter. There wasn't too many problems back then. I mean, you did have problems, but not that many problems. The last time I stayed there was for like 2 nights because I had to. I couldn't get a bed at Pine Street or Rosie's place, and that was back in 2010. And the deal is, they had, from what I found out, a lot of people that had been in jail were now staying out there. And they had changed up. When I was there in the 90s, they didn't have drug and alcohol treatment programs. Since I left there in 92, they've installed new programs to help more homeless people because they see, this is what they need in order to get stabilized, in order to do what they need to in order to take care of themselves. In fact, they've paired up with Pine Street Inn for the most part, and Pine Street Inn has helped them to focus on what is achievable and what isn't achievable. In fact, Pine Street does a lot for the community, you might as well say, because they also took over control of Shattuck Shelter in Jamaica Plain, and that's improved. I mean, seriously, they're working with the Department of Mental Health and Mental Retardation, finding safe, secure housing for mentally ill individuals that come into all the shelters. I mean, they're really making a lot of strides, but like I said, in the beginning, when I stayed at Long Island, it was not the same as it was before it closed down. I mean, I've heard complaints about Long Island from other women who have been staying at the shelter for the last 5 to 10 years, and they said there's rapes going on out there. They've had domestic violence issues out there. It's gone beyond just complaining about the fact that at the shelter there's no doors on the stalls to the women's bathroom there, or no way of protecting yourself. If somebody walks in and decides they're going to peek while you're taking a shower or something, it goes beyond just that.
Well, what I've also learned from you and other women who have stayed in the shelter system is it's safety. And a lot of these women are avoiding abusive situations, have potential PTSD issues from past issues, and you go into a situation which is equally scary and not safe. That is heartbreaking for me to hear, and I've heard it before, but you're reconfirming things that I've heard as well. From you've mentioned like Rosie's Place. There's a lot of great places for women out there. Tell our viewers about some of those places that are like positive places for women to go.
Well, some of the places I've discovered in my time of being homeless and housed and homeless and housed again and again is up here in Cambridge. You have the Cambridge Women's Center, which I got involved with learning about through Chris Wamendis. She's the owner of Phoenix House, the battered women's shelter in Boston. And seriously, Chris has taught me a lot over the years there. And when she introduced me to Betsy Warrior, who's in charge of the Cambridge Women's Center, I learned even more from them. Just being homeless is enough to teach you a lot. But when you got strong, positive people behind you, you learn a lot more of the things that you didn't know before. Like, for instance, with Chris there, I learned self-defense up here at one of the martial arts academies over on Green Street. Because of Betsy, I've fought a lot more harder for some women's issues, and in certain cases there, because of Rosie's Place, I've learned more about politics, what our leaders are capable of doing, what they're not capable of doing, how we can approach them and tell them what our needs are, and sometimes they'll get met. I mean, seriously, there's all sorts of positives going on. Like with Pine Street Inn, the Women's Inn on on Albany Street there. What do you know? They have for the women there, a program called Paul Sullivan House. It helps the men as well too, but with Paul Sullivan House there, if you qualify for their program, they'll get you into a single room occupancy in a scatter site throughout the metropolitan Boston area. I think that's one of the best positives going right now. I mean, a lot of the shelters, they focus on things like housing, clothing, food, things of those sort to keep people safe, but Pine Street Inn is taking a different approach. They're providing housing to make sure you stay safe. And when I was in Paul Sullivan House, they said I could stay there for up to 2 years. They would help me keep working on getting a Section 8 certificate so I could get my own apartment, whatever size I needed, studio, 1 bed, 2 bed, whatever. That was going to actually help me to get me stabilized and stay on my feet. And they're doing that with a lot of the people that stay at the shelter. I mean, you have drop-in centers up here in Cambridge. You have them in Boston, like St. Francis House on Boylston Street in downtown Boston. They give all sorts of assistance. When you need it, they have lunch there during the day, 5 days a week. They also give out clothing. They make referrals to other shelters, like Father Bill's shelter. They'll make a referral to Harvard Square Homeless Shelter if you needed that in the wintertime and stuff. I mean, there's all sorts of positives going on.
Well, so what I'm getting from you is so if you have to be able to know who to go to for it to make it work for you.
Yeah.
And so what advice would you give? Say there's a young homeless woman who you meet, and what advice would you give to her in regards to getting help?
Well, I'd say pretty much trust your instincts and go talk to someone that can help you. Like with me, when I became homeless back in the 90s there, I was only in my 20s and I had no clue what the shelter system was going to be like. But the deal is, I went on my own feelings there. I said, I'm going to trust my gut. Someone recommended that I talk to someone at Pine Street. I talked to them and I found out it was worthwhile to get that help because they were willing to help me not only get housing, but to figure out what else I needed to do in order to achieve my goals.
So Beatrice, in addition to having a really strong understanding of what's going on in the shelter system, you also write and sell spare change news. Where do you sell spare change in the city?
Well, I sell at 3 spots. I sell at Haymarket Station and Faneuil Hall Marketplace from the spring when the weather starts getting better up until fall when it starts getting cold. And on the weekends, I sell at the Prudential Center T Station because that works well. In the wintertime, because it's easier and convenient, I do the Prudential Center all winter long, 7 days a week, because it keeps me steady, keeps me going. And I have a lot of friends that I've made from selling the papers in those areas.
And also, Beatrice was recently featured in our Last Word section. We're going to get a sneak peek of that. You mentioned in the vendor meeting that you were signing autographs on the back of the paper.
Yeah, I met this one guy, and it was kind of surprising. But the deal is, I had been at the corner outside of Haymarket Station, and I had been asking people who'd care to check out the latest spare change news. This guy came up and said, "Oh, okay, I'll take it." He gave me $2, and I asked him real quick, "Hey, would you do me a favor? Would you call up the paper and let them know what you think about the article that they wrote on me?" And they said, "Where is it at?" And I said, "It's on the back of the paper." And he looked at it and said, "Wow, you're kind of famous here, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess, I don't know." But he said, "Hey, can I have your autograph?" And I'm like, "You for real?"
That's what I love about Spare Change is like it basically shines a light on the vendors. You've been with the paper for so long, and you have a lot of wisdom and a lot of things to offer other people who may be homeless or may not be homeless, just people that are trying to survive life, because life is tough, you know,
Right.
and trying to deal with the obstacles. And you've dealt with a lot of ups and downs in your life, and you still have a positive outlook on life. And that's when I first met Beatrice. I saw her with like in front of the mayor, and I'm like, gosh, she's like a beam of like sunshine when I met you.
Yeah, that's funny.
I was like, she's a beam of sunshine, and I know like so you mentioned the winter and how difficult was it for selling the paper during the winter?
This past winter, I had my toughest winter ever because I didn't even make like $50 a week because of all the bad weather.
Yeah.
I mean, I was really struggling, couldn't get off a lot of the papers and stuff of that sort. But since spring has hit, things have increased for me, so I'm happy about that.
It's been a tough winter for us, but it's been dramatic since the weather's gotten better, and also the paper's better too. And I think that the last issue sold out 4 days early, and the latest issue with Jimmy Tingle is doing extremely well. And speaking of that, so the Jimmy Tingle issue is a current edition. We're selling copies left and right, so you better get your copy sooner rather than later. Jimmy Tingle is going to be our keynote speaker at our gala, which is May 12th
Right.
at the Nerd Center.
Are you going?
I'm going to go to the gala.
Goody, goody.
Oh, you're going to go, right?
Yeah, I actually bought myself a new outfit.
Oh, you did? That's
Yeah.
awesome. So come to our gala so you can see Beatrice in her new outfit on May 12th. It's from 6 to 9 at the Nerd Center, which is right by the Kendall Street T-Stop. We're going to play a quick clip. This is from Diane Smith, who she was a Harvard student who made this video. It's called No Room at the End. It was actually a documentary that we aired on Spare Change News TV. We got a huge response. She has additional clips, and one of them involves a woman who is homeless.
It's a long process how I became homeless. I've been homeless since September 1st, 2012. I used to be a normal person. I graduated from high school with honors throughout high school, and after high school I had a landscape job for over 5 years, and my mom was my foreman on my landscaping crew. She worked with me. She didn't own the company, but she did work with me on my landscaping crew. And my father never tried to help me get my license, but when I had my permit so that I could keep my job, she was the one who drove me to work every day.
Yes.
My mother and I became sick. We lost our job, our car, and a year and a half later, our house.
Okay.
We're from Niagara Falls, New York. I am, but my mom, being from Boston, Mass, and everything, she knew there was resources here.
Yes.
So she brought me here on the Amtrak when she knew we were going to be evicted from our house. And that's how I became homeless.
How are you living?
In the subways, anywhere I can find heat at night, anywhere dry, like blankets, sleep bad.
Do you feel hopeful that something might happen to help you?
No, because I've had my name on several housing agencies everywhere throughout Mass, and I haven't got anything bad yet, only a denial.
I've been homeless here for about 5 years. I'm a recovering heroin addict. So I have a lot of stuff, a lot of issues I'm trying to work through and over. Trying to get my life better. I started making art and I'm trying to do stuff that's productive with my time. I have family or resources.
Where do you sleep at night? What?
Doorways?
You sleep in doorways, even in the cold? Do the police come and shoo you off, or can you stay?
The cops will come and wake me up, run me off. People will come and tell me that they're going to call the cop. apparently I'm not having a hard enough time.
What type of art do you create?
I do a lot of writing. I've been doing some painting and drawing. But I've been working with a friend of mine doing a bunch of like spoken word stuff with my art. I'll do like video clips and make like a video piece out of like my writing and just anything that I can do from like breathing fire to cooking food to walking around.
Welcome back to Spare Change News TV. That was extremely powerful, especially the first interview with a young woman who's homeless. We talked about giving advice. Have you? I mean, do you ever approach any homeless women or people that are out there and talk to them?
Yeah, I do. In fact, just recently, on Friday, I had met this one woman over at Haymarket. She was there stemming for change, she said, so that her and a boyfriend could get food. And I asked her, well, have you ever checked out Spare Change News? Because they hire the homeless, low income, elderly, and disabled, help them to get on their feet to get what they need by providing them with a job. And she said, no, she had never heard about it. So I gave her a free copy of the paper, and I told her, call them up, check them out, go up to Cambridge to Old Baptist Church, sign up to be a vendor because it will help you in the end. And I'm usually, one of the persons that will do that with some of the ladies that I run into. I don't get a good response out of the guys most times when I do that. Like there's one guy that stems over at Prudential Center, and seriously, at one point, me and him got ready to go with fisticuffs there because he wants to tell me, oh, this is my spot. I've been in the spot for like 7 years. He comes along, I ain't never seen this dude, and he's talking about, I've been here for 2 years, and I'm like, yeah, that's nothing to me.
There's a lot of stuff in regards to like people's locations, and have you had any situations throughout your tenure with Spare Change with being mistreated by the cops or any other by people in general?
Actually, I have not had problems with the cops because down where I am, I'm mainly dealing with a lot of middle class and upper class individuals. Like most of the people that come through Haymarket Station are lawyers, doctors, and other professionals. Even some politicians will come by, and I've given them free samples before, and they'll come by and they'll actually buy a copy from me. The only problem I've ever experienced is with the Bruins fans. Like last summer, I was down at Faneuil Hall, and I said, who'd care to help the homeless? Who's interested in Spare Change News? And what do you know, this group of young men, might have been college students, might have been a little bit younger, they come by and they say, oh, who gives a F about the homeless? If in anything, they should crawl on a rock and die. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna touch that one there, because inside me, I just wanted to get up and beat the crap out of someone. But I said, no, I'm just gonna take a step back. I'm gonna let it go. I mean,
well, you know martial arts too, like you
right. Yeah, you can say that's due to Chris Womendis.
But I mean, I'm glad that we're professional.
Right.
People like that, like there's this ignorance out in the world, but you do see, like I have seen situations where the homeless have been mistreated by a lot. Usually it's kids that are not educated. I've seen when it comes to Spare Change News, people say like I've heard someone say get a job to one of our vendors.
Oh, I've had that said to me as well too, a couple of times there. But if in anything, what surprises me is like 2 years ago, I was selling at Faneuil Hall. This woman came by with her 2-year-old, and he said, "Oh no, mommy, you got to help her." And dead up serious, he gave me 50 cents for a paper. Couldn't read it for nothing, but he kind of shamed his mother because he said he had been in Sunday school that day there, and they were learning about how to help other people and stuff like that. About a week later, I ran into a 7-year-old, and the 7-year-old did the same thing. He said all he had on him was 2 cents, and I said, no problem with me. With both the women there, I told them, there are things in the paper you can enjoy with your kids there. You know, there's puzzles and games at the back of the paper. You know, you're teaching your kids something, you know, and they're enjoying it.
Are you getting a stronger response since I've been editor of Spare Change to the
Oh,
returns of-
definitely.
I mean, I've definitely, we've worked really hard and trying to make it look appealing. The last 2 covers have done really well. So hopefully we'll have more content from you, Beatrice. You've been fantastic to work with and a joy to have you on staff and also as one of our vendors. If you want more information about Spare Change News, go to sparechangenews.net. Again, we have our vendor awards, which is going to be our 23rd anniversary at the Nerd Center on May 12th. Beatrice is going to have a new outfit and hopefully be up for one of our vendor awards. Potentially.
Who knows?
We'll know.
I
We'll
got
see.
one last year. Who knows?
Yeah, again, Beatrice has been fantastic, so follow her work. She's online at sparechangenews.net and also within the paper. Purchase the paper from Beatrice, who now is at Haymarket.
Yeah.
Haymarket and Faneuil Hall.
Right. I'll be there all spring, all summer, all fall until the weather gets cold. If I'm not there, it's because I got a doctor's appointment or I'm coming to